What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And the New York Giants made some massive upgrades to their offense this offseason. Now, over the past few years, we've seen some pretty mundane offenses trot out onto the field for the New York Giants, thinking back to the Pat Shurmur days, the Jason Garrett days. But this past season, with Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka at the helm, the New York Giants offense took a massive step forward. It was a big upgrade last year. We saw a career year out of Daniel Jones, career year out of Saquon Barkley, and we saw a lot of players really rise to the occasion. Isaiah Hodgins, Darius Slayton, all these players just finding a way to get the best out of themselves with Brian Daboll coaching them, Mike Kafka coaching them. And now we're really excited for the 2023 season, where the Giants have added some massive upgrades to their offense, particularly at the tight end spot, wide receiver, and even along the offensive line as well. So we want to preview this Giants offense heading into week one. I know it's eons away, very far away, but we want to take a look at what this offense might look like once we get to that first weekend in September that the New York Giants will be facing off on Sunday Night Football against the Dallas Cowboys. I can't wait. I know you're all super excited as well. But let's go ahead and dive into what the projected starting offense might look like. But before we do that, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. Comment your thoughts on the topic down below. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. But without further ado, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And what are your first impressions on the New York Giants' revamped offense?
I'm doing great, and yes, I'm excited about the Giants' revamped offense. Been writing a lot about how they've increased their speed and athleticism across the board. You look at Jalen Hyatt, Darius Slayton, and of course, Paris Campbell, one of our more underrated signings this offseason. And Paris Campbell, wrote about him this morning. I actually think that he could play a pretty big role for us in 2023, coming off his first full season healthy, 17 games, had over 600 yards, 3 touchdowns, and had a really big catch in triple coverage against the Giants late in the season this past year. And I think Brian Daboll saw him, was like, we got to go get that guy. He can make some nice contested catches. He's got elite speed, and he can work out of the slot, which is a position that, a little bit undermanned with Wan'Dale Robinson coming back from the injury. We bring back Sterling Shepard. A lot of those slot guys for us have been injured recently, so you want to bring him some more support there. Paris Campbell, of course, and then Jalen Hyatt works a lot out of the slot as well. So we're going to see the Giants get really creative with this offense in 2023, build off the foundation they've set and starting to kind of lay the bricks. But I want to start with the offensive line, projecting what that's going to look like. I think we can already assume that Evan Neal's at right tackle and Andrew Thomas is at left tackle. But the interior there, John Michael Schmitz, I think we all can guarantee he's going to be at center. So those three guys right off the bat, that's said and done. Mark Lewinsky at right guard, I believe, is probable. I would say it's a 90% chance Mark Lewinsky is at right guard unless Josh Ezeudu just kind of explodes onto the scene and has a ridiculous spring and just dethrones him, which is possible. But he could also take over at left guard, where you also have Ben Bredeson, who I think actually ends up starting there. So offensive line, you guys may have a slightly different makeup than I do, but I have Andrew Thomas at left tackle. I actually have Ben Bredeson at left guard because Ezeudu had that neck injury last year and missed a lot of time, so I think he only got half a rookie season under his belt. I think as a long-term piece, he can be a solid player for us. At the very least, he can fill in at left tackle and fill in at left guard, which is definitely a really nice, versatile player to have on your roster. But I think Ben Bredeson looked pretty good when he was healthy last season. I'm willing to give him a shot at left guard as the starter to start the year. And then JMS, of course, at center, Glowinski at right guard, and Evan Neal at right tackle. What are your thoughts there? I think that's kind of the assumed starting 5.
Yeah, that's the starting 5 that I would also project. I mean, Andrew Thomas coming off of the All-Pro season. Of course, he's still the left tackle, and he will be for a very long time. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a contract extension before the start of the regular season. I could see that deal getting done anytime between now and training camp. They just got the deal done with Dexter Lawrence, as we all know, and I think that Andrew Thomas is next up on the docket. But moving into the interior, because that's really where we need to focus in on, left guard is the biggest question mark for the New York Giants right now. I think when you look at right guard, listen, Glowinski wasn't the best, but he wasn't the worst. He was probably slightly below average talent throughout the whole season, and honestly, that's kind of the best you're going to get right now with the New York Giants offensive line. They don't have a ton of talent, a lot of depth at those positions. So when you're looking at the interior, I think that Glowinski is going to maintain his spot at right guard. I don't think anybody dethrones him or takes that job from him. I do think that he will end up being the starting right guard, and hopefully he can play better than he did last year. But left guard is the big question mark for the Giants. You have a few names out there who could potentially compete for the job. You mentioned Joshua Ezeudu. You mentioned Ben Bredeson. Don't sleep on Shane Lemieux. I'm going to sleep on Shane Lemieux, but I know many of you won't. I'm going to continue to nap and hibernate on Shane Lemieux because I do not see him taking that job from either Joshua Ezeudu or Ben Bredeson. I know that Joe Shane recently mentioned that if they didn't land a center in the draft, Shane Lemieux would have been in the mix for the center job, but now that they have John Michael Schmitz, he's going to be your day one starter at center. If he isn't, he'll take over at some point during the regular season, but I really can't envision a reality where John Michael Schmitz isn't the day one starter at the center position, barring any type of injury. So I also agree with you. I think Ben Bredeson takes the left guard spot. The Giants did draft Joshua Zito in the 3rd round last year, so you would expect that they have some sort of high expectations for him to develop into a decent player at some point. However, I don't know if right now is going to be that point. I think that Zito really missed a lot of time as a rookie. That was a lot of valuable experience that he missed out on. So playing offensive line in the NFL, a lot of that is experiential learning. You just got to get out there, got to get your ass kicked, and then hopefully that will make you figure out what to do better and how to be a better player. Joshua Zito didn't get his ass kicked enough, in my opinion. He wasn't on the field enough. They did the rotation with him and Bredeson throughout the year, and of course Nick Gates as well. They tried to rotate all the 3 of those guys on the field as much as possible, but Zito missed out on a lot of developmental time because of that injury, so I don't think he's going to be ready to start week 1 in this upcoming season. But if Ben Bredeson does struggle through the first 5 weeks of the season, I could totally see a world where Zito takes over as the starter and is hopefully ready to play some good football at that point. And again, right tackle, Evan Neal is going to maintain that position, 7th overall pick in last year's draft. I do think there's a lot of potential there. Yes, he struggled a lot as a rookie, but I'm expecting a big jump in year 2 where he can hopefully take a step forward and be a much better player. I still see the potential with Evan Neal. If anything, I could see him potentially moving to guard one day, but I don't think that his leash should be that short. I do think that he should at least be given the first half of the season to prove what he could do at the right tackle spot. But offensive line, that's probably the most crucial part of this whole offense to take a look at because I think it's the weakest part at this point. You know, we went into the offseason discussing the receiving core, discussing the tight end position, and we felt confident in a lot of those guys. Then we made some upgrades to those spots, but we didn't make a ton of upgrades to the offensive line. But I do want to talk about the upgraded spots, right? Like the wide receiver core, because that is a much improved position group in my opinion. Now, they didn't go out there and find their WR1. They didn't get DeAndre Hopkins. They didn't get Jordan Addison. They didn't get any of those guys, but they did find Jalen Hyatt in round 3, and they did sign Paris Campbell, as you just mentioned, and they extended Darius Slayton, which most Giants fans didn't expect to happen. So we can be really happy about this wide receiver core going into the season, in my opinion. But Alex, ultimately, who do you think are the day one starters at that spot? It's hard to say Wan'Dale Robinson's going to be one of them because we don't know if he's going to be healthy. Sterling Shepard as well, not going to be healthy probably for the start of the season. So who is left for those 3 starting roles, the 1 in the slot and the 2 on the outside? Who do you think are the 3 starting receivers in week 1?
That's probably the most difficult of the bunch to determine. I think Isaiah Hodgins is starting on a boundary. I think Darius Slayton starts on the boundary. And I do think that Jalen Hyatt starting in the slot. I think that's kind of our primary 3 guys that we roll into the season with. But when Wan'Dale Robinson comes back, you have Paris Campbell there. You have some guys. I think that we're going to see ebbs and flows. I think this wide receiver core isn't good enough to say these are our primary 3 starters. I think they're good enough to say, let the best man win, let the hot hand roll. And I think that's kind of the approach I would take if I were the Giants. I'd say, you know what, if Jalen Hyatt's going off and he's having a crazy season, I'm going to give him more opportunities, or I'm going to put him in the field a lot more. If Darius Slayton's having a really good year, he has 800 plus yards, he's putting up 9 touchdowns, you're keeping him on the field. Isaiah Hodgins, if he's having a really good couple of weeks, he's scoring on a weekly basis like he was last year at times, you keep him on the field. And ultimately, they're going to have different packages for different players. Like, Darren Waller is essentially a receiver, right? He's going to be considered the starting tight end, but he's essentially a receiver. He only plays about 35% of his reps, of his snaps in line. So the rest of those, he's playing out wide. He's playing in the slot as a jumbo kind of slot guy. You're going to see them doing a lot of really intriguing, interesting things. I'm honestly curious to see how they utilize all of these receivers, because none of them are like top-end wide receiver ones, but they all are very capable in their own respects, right? Like the speed and athleticism is obviously prevalent for guys like Hyatt, guys like Paris Campbell, and obviously Waller, and Slayton, who has the speed, the burner speed that we've become accustomed to over the last couple of seasons. But I really wonder, like early downs, I could see them having Hodgins on the field a lot more, having Daniel Bellinger on the field a lot more. I could really see mitigating health concerns for Darren Waller will be a priority. The question is, how do you do that? you really don't utilize him all the time. You have to keep him healthy. He's 31 years old, right? So he's a little bit older. If you want him healthy for a full season, you can't depend on him to play every single snap. In fact, I would say that we're going to see him a lot more on second and third downs and maybe not so much on first downs. First downs, you want your elite blocking tight end out there in Daniel Bellinger. Maybe they run a lot of 2 tight end sets, and that way they can confuse defenses and they can, have Waller come from an inline position and then break out into the seams or on those quick outs or utilize that speed and size and just power he possesses. And then Bellinger being that run first type of tight end blocking guy, you have him really exercise in the zones and you really get him out into the second level and do what he does best, get in front of Saquon Barkley and open up running lanes. So first down, I think we're going to see a lot of running the football, setting the tone on the ground. Obviously, a lot of play action will go with it with Darren Waller, utilizing those 2 tight end sets. But I'll ask you this. Who are your 3 primary starters, and how do you think they get all these guys into the mix? Because there's too much talent to keep on the bench.
Yeah, there's a lot of talent here. I mean, again, they don't have that WR1. They don't have that elite talent in here, but they have a lot of talented guys who should be on the field at some point. My projected 3 starters, I'm going to go with, on the boundary, let's say the X wide receiver position, I'm going to go with Isaiah Hodgins. Z, I'm going to throw Darius Slayton over there. And then in the slot, I actually think it's going to be Paris Campbell. I think that Jalen Hyatt is a tremendous talent with a whole lot of speed, but I don't think that he's a day one starter. I think that he's going to need time to develop, get used to an NFL system. If you watch what he was doing over in Tennessee, a lot of what he was able to find success in is not translatable to the NFL. When he was with Tennessee, it was a lot of move him in motion, line him up behind a wide receiver, snap the ball while he's still running, and then he runs a go route. Those plays that you run, when you run those plays in the NFL, they don't turn into 6 touchdowns in a game, right? Jalen Hyatt doing what he did in Tennessee was tremendous. It was absolutely exceptional, right? He was an amazing talent. But what he did at Tennessee is not what he's going to do in the NFL. It's just not possible. That kind of offense doesn't work in this league. So he's going to take some time to adjust. He had a total of 20 snaps against press coverage in his whole collegiate career. He's going to face press in the NFL. There's going to be slot cornerbacks who line up on him and they get in his face, and he's going to have to learn how to deal with that. Again, more experiential learning for these rookies, and I think that when you're looking at Jalen Hyatt, it's going to take him some time. I would love to see him torch Trayvon Diggs in week 1, right? I would love to see that happen. See him score a touchdown first week of the game, 50-yard, or first week of the season, 50-yard plus touchdown pass. That would be amazing. But is that necessarily realistic? I'm not so sure, because I do think that Hyatt is going to need some time to adjust to the NFL game. I hope I'm wrong. I hope he just hits the ground running from week 1, but looking at his skill set and how he was utilized in college, he's going to be utilized in a totally different way. So I think they're going to have to work him onto the field, which is why I think Paris Campbell is going to start out of the slot for the Giants. I like what he brings to the game. I think that he brings a lot of speed. He also brings a lot of run after the catch ability, which is also similar to what Wan'Dale Robinson brings. And I think that Robinson will overtake that position once he's healthy, a guy that the Giants are really high on, 2nd round pick last year. Robinson is somebody that I really like, and I think he's going to be a big focal point of the offense. But I think that's kind of the key here. As you're asking me, how do they get these guys on the field? Well, they have to wait for Robinson to get healthy, right? So once he's at 100%, then they'll start working him in. But I think it's going to be based a lot on what kind of defenses the Giants are facing and the down and distance, right? Because if you're facing a 3rd and 15, you want your burners on the field. You want those guys who get those 15 yards as soon as possible. So you're going to see Hyatt, you're going to see Slayton, and you're going to see Campbell. But let's say it's 3rd and 2. Well, then you might see some guys like Sterling Shepard, quick route runner who can get open in the short to intermediate routes. Isaiah Hodgins, who gets open on those shallow crossers. Then you're going to see those short route guys. Daniel Bellinger will also be thrown into the mix. It's always going to depend on the situation. And I think that's kind of the beauty of what the Giants have built this offseason in their receiving core. They have the perfect receiver for every situation. That's exactly what you need. Now, do they have a one guy does all, a wide receiver 1, an elite talent who could do all of those things? No, again, they don't, but they've built a committee here in their receiving core that should allow them to exploit all defenses and allow them to rise to the occasion of every single down and distance and every single moment of every single game. So that's what I really admire about how the Giants built this receiving core this offseason. They weren't able to go find that elite talent, but they found a bunch of guys who you combine them together, they could do all those things that elite talent would be able to do. So again, you have your short yardage situations. Hodgins feasts in those. Shepard does well in those. But when you need those long 15-plus yard plays, you still have your Paris Campbells of the world, your Jalen Hyatts, and your Darius Slayton. So a lot of versatility in the New York Giants receiving core right now. But I will say, where you see the most versatility in this offense is the tight end spot. I'm really excited to watch Darren Waller hit the ground running with the New York Giants, be their every man of this offense, be that wide receiver one that they couldn't find, right, from the tight end spot, because he's going to line up in line, he's going to line up in the slot, he's going to line up out wide, he's going to move all over this Giants offense. He has a bunch of speed, he has great hands, he has the ability to make contested catches. He's everything that you want from a wide receiver one, but he's a tight end, and I think that almost makes him more dangerous, more valuable to this Giants offense, exploiting certain safeties and linebackers that they're going to face in this NFC East. So Waller, great talent, but Alex, what are your thoughts on that? And how often do you think Daniel Bellinger is going to see the field? Because I will say, I think that the addition of Waller is only going to benefit Bellinger. He's going to have easier matchups. He's going to play more inline tight end. He's not going to be asked to do more things. He's going to be able to block more, show off what he could really do in that facet of the game because we know he's a great blocker. I think that this is actually a good thing for Daniel Bellinger as he enters the second season of his career.
I mean, I completely agree. And the reality is, like I said before, Darren Waller may only see 35 to 40% of snaps in line. So who else is getting those snaps? 60% of them, Daniel Bellinger. He's getting the reps. And look, here's what I like about what the Giants do. They look at a player, they see what their strengths are, and they say, okay, how can we maximize their strengths? In the past, we were trying to fit those square pegs into round holes, and ultimately that was not a successful and winning strategy. Daniel Bellinger is an above-average run blocker. Why not make sure we expand upon that skill set? And he's capable in the receiving game. He's a good pass catcher. You know, he has really, really solid hands. Had a couple drops last year, but I think it was more so like rookie jitters. And I think he's going to be a very solid pass catcher. He doesn't get a lot of separation, but he's got a good body. He can be the guy that collects those passes in the shorter portions of the field. You know, high percentage throws, 0 to 9 yards. You know, you're not going to see him get downfield all the time, but he can pick up those first downs. He can haul in those short concepts. He can move the chains for you. But Darren Waller is going to be your explosive playmaker from the tight end position. He's going to be your Travis Kelce. He's going to be your Darren Waller. And I think that's ultimately what the Giants want from him. An explosive playmaker, gets downfield, utilizes that frame, expands the route tree from the tight end position, and allows Daniel Bellinger to be more of a security blanket, right? Security blanket is what Daniel Jones loves. He loves to rifle those balls in 0 to 9 yards at 100 miles an hour. You need a guy with good hands who can haul those in. And then you have Darren Waller for the different, more explosive plays. So Daniel Bellinger, he's not losing a step because of this. In fact, I agree with you. He's going to get better because they're going to be able to utilize him to his strengths. They're going to be able to apply him in ways that he can utilize those powers and maximize them. And I think that's ultimately what good teams do. They see a player, they look at their strengths, and they make sure to make the most of that and expand upon that skill set. And sometimes, you can't teach speed. Like Daniel Bellinger's not fast. He's a slow tight end. So you can't ask him to get downfield and make him an explosive playmaker. You have him utilize those strong hands. You have him be the security blanket. You have him be a very nice blocker. He can do a lot of stuff for you. Before the eye injury, he was really doing well. He was off to a very strong start. So right now, I'm very optimistic he's going to have a very good second season alongside Waller. I don't think it's going to hold him back one bit.
No, I think they're going to propel each other forward. I think that you're going to see a lot of 2 tight end sets from the New York Giants. And again, I know that's something that we thought they would start to get away from with Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll ran a lot of 11 personnel, 1 tight end on the field at all times during his time with Buffalo. But he's very adaptive, and he likes to really mix it up based on the personnel. And the Giants now have 2 very high-quality tight ends here. So I think you're going to see a lot of 2 tight end sets where you have Waller, he's a tight end, but he's lining up a receiver, and then you have an inline tight end. And I'm really excited to see that unfold for the Giants offense. But rounding this out, we've hit on the offensive line, the receiving core, tight end spot. Let's talk about the quarterback and the running back, the big ticket items for the New York Giants. We know that Daniel Jones is obviously your starting quarterback. We'll see who's the depth behind him. Tommy DeVito is an undrafted free agent that they signed. I don't know if he really has a chance of making the roster. I think that Tyrod Taylor is going to maintain his spot as the backup quarterback. Maybe he gets an extension or restructure. I've seen some Giants fans talk about that. He's a player whose contract is a little bit flexible. And then at the running back spot, I think the Giants have a lot more depth here than they did last year because of the addition of Eric Gray. Now, I expect Saquon Barkley to play this year. I think he's going to play on the franchise tag. In fact, I think at this point, he might be hoping to play on the franchise tag, get franchise tag back-to-back seasons. So let's put it into perspective here, because when you're talking about the Saquon Barkley contract conversation, right? He's looking for more guaranteed money. And I know some reporters are saying, or some executives are saying, well, the Giants should only offer him $8 to $9 million. Well, Saquon will never accept that because he gets $10.1 million guaranteed this season to play on the franchise tag. If they franchise tag him again next year, $12 million guaranteed. That's $22 million across 2 years, fully guaranteed if he plays on the franchise tag both years. Now, if he were to take an extension, I don't even know if he gets $20 million guaranteed. So it's wise for him at this point to play on the franchise tag. So I do expect Saquon to play this year, and I expect him to play pretty well so he could get justified to get a second franchise tag next offseason. But let's take a look at that backfield, right? With Daniel Jones, what he brings, of course, as a quarterback, but also to the running game. And then in the running game, Saquon Barkley, and now you have Eric Gray as well. Alex, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that, the addition of an extra running back who can really play at a starting level, hopefully, with Eric Gray here, how dynamic do you think this running game is about to get, combining Barkley, Gray, and Jones into the mix?
Look, Gray is a 3-down back. Like, he's not a scat back. He's not Naheem Hines. He's a guy that can step in and fill a starting role. Like, that's how he's profiled. Now, having him sit behind Saquon Barkley, develop his game, refine his game is going to be a good thing. And I think ultimately, like, Gary Brightwell had a couple of good moments last year. I think that Eric Gray, being the fact that he is a draft pick from the Giants this year, makes some of those other guys potentially expendable. I think there is a world where Matt Breida is cut from this team. I think that, they may roll with Brightwell, Gray, and Saquon as their primary three backs. And Breida, being experienced, I do like him. He had a couple of nice plays last year. I actually think that I'd prefer to keep him because he's kind of cheap. But he does count a little bit against the salary cap. I think they save like $1 million. Maybe they apply it elsewhere towards a position that needs a little bit more depth. But he's got some good hands. He fought for some first downs last year. I would not be surprised. Honestly, as crazy as it might be to say, I might even see them releasing Brightwell over Breida and keeping Gray. Brightwell's fine. He's a good backup, but he's not a starter, and he doesn't really have the best hands. So, you're not looking at him as this like pass catching back. I think Breida's actually a better receiver. So, when you look at that, who do you think they would choose to release, and maybe they save a little bit of money on Breida? Or do you think that Brightwell, even though he was a draft pick 2 years ago, do you think there's a possibility that they let him go?
I could see them letting go of either one of those players, but I do think that Brightwell's ability to make an impact on special teams probably earns him the spot. Now, you could also throw in the mix, the Giants drafted a bunch of players who can also take that role from Brightwell. I think what it's going to come down to, let's see this summer as the Giants begin to practice in training camp, who stands out on special teams. And if Gary Brightwell doesn't stand out on special teams, he's probably gone, because at that point, he doesn't contribute a whole lot on offense. Breida's going to be able to contribute more on offense than Brightwell, just because he's a better rusher. So, and even though Breida doesn't really add anything to the special teams unit, I think that Brightwell might not have as much to add anymore, because the Giants have added so much more to the back end of their roster and so many more players who can contribute on special teams. Even looking at a guy like Jervarius Owens, free safety that they drafted in the 7th round. I think that, some scouts and analysts have him projected as a starter one day at the safety spot. But in the meantime, he's going to develop on special teams. Same with Trey Hawkins, 6th-round pick, cornerback out of Old Dominion. The Giants added some talent to that special teams core that might phase Gary Brightwell out. So if I had to guess which one's gone, I think Brightwell's on his way out. But also, I wouldn't even be shocked if the Giants went ahead and just rolled with Barkley, Gray, and then some other guy that they pick up off waivers eventually, just to kind of plug and play. That could also happen if they feel like they need to cut Breida to save the cap space. But overall, I think that Breida, he was with Dable in Buffalo. He's familiar with the offense. He's a good veteran. He's a solid back. I think that he's going to maintain his spot with the team. Brightwell, in my opinion, will be the odd man out, because I think that despite the fact that he's able to contribute on special teams, I think the Giants found some more willing and more able special teams contributors here who are going to be able to kind of phase Brightwell out of the offense and really off of the team, unfortunately. But again, really excited for this offense, taking a look at it in its totality. We didn't even really hit on the quarterback position, but we know what Daniel Jones is bringing to this offense. He's a good passer, he's a good rusher, and now he has far more weapons to work with. One thing that I will say about Daniel Jones, the excuses, no more. You can't really make any more excuses for this guy. He finally got an upgrade at the center spot. He got a much better offensive line in front of him. He's in the 2nd year of an offense with 2 of the best offensive-minded coaches in the NFL, and now he has a severely upgraded position of wide receivers and tight ends. He has a severely upgraded playmaker group. So I think that when you're looking at it, no more excuses for Daniel Jones. This is the year, and I am confident in him. This is the most confident in him that I've been in a very long time, and yes, a lot of that has to do with the fact that he did lead us to a playoff victory. So feeling excited about this Giants offense. Can't wait till week 1. Might go ahead, take a nap today, wake up in September. That would be completely fine with me. I just can't wait for some New York Giants regular season football. But let us know how excited you all are down below in the comment section, and send us your projected offense down below. And again, make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. But without further ado, we will catch you all in the next one. Have a good one.